The Assertive Transparency, also known as Transparency Initiative, has similarly failed. China has repeatedly said it's ready to meet halfway. Let's show the report of Ambassador Huang Xilian. China has maintained its posture of continuing openness, offering to meet halfway at every tense and critical juncture to resolve issues. The Philippines has been compelled to close its doors and windows to China's goodwill by the pivot to the US of Bongbong Marcos. The repeated rejection of China's goodwill and joint development offers will just consign the Philippines to the backwaters of ASEAN and advance US plans for Ukraine 2.0 in Asia. So we see there the report from January 18, 2024. China hopes Philippines steers towards bringing bilateral ties back on track, and the insertion of the GMA News Online, Huang urges Philippines to meet China halfway on West Philippine Sea, uphold one China policy. ASEAN success with China. Let's project the next slide. The path taken by other ASEAN stakeholders in the South China Sea routes has been peaceful and productive dialogue that lead to win-win solutions. For example, Indonesia's President Prabowo Subianto has just signed on November 10, 2024, a $10 billion deal with President Xi Jinping that promised a, quote, common understanding on joint development in areas of overlapping claims, unquote, effectively setting aside the dispute and engaging in mutually beneficial economic endeavors. I will just add a few comments here. So this is very positive. This will already allow Indonesia and China to do joint ventures, extraction of oil and gas, extraction of other minerals in the disputed areas between Indonesia and China. But we must note also that US proxies within Indonesian political scene, within the Indonesian political scene, are already surfacing and actively opposing this, insisting that there are no overlapping claims, insisting that there is only UNCLOS to base claims on, which is absolutely false, which is the same mythology they are projecting in the Philippines. There is also the international customary law, which is much broader, and therefore there is no resolution if the insistence on just using UNCLOS is the basis. There is no resolution there. That is why setting aside of the dispute through this agreement will open up the real prospects of billions and billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars of benefits to partners in such joint ventures. Now, the United States of America and the Western allies are actively opposing this, preventing this, obstructing this, to prevent resolution positively of the issues in the South China Sea territorial dispute. That should be obvious by now after 10, 20 years of stoking tension, particularly using the Philippines, and which aborted a very important and beneficial project, the Philippine-China Joint Oil and Gas Exploration and Development Project that was sabotaged by US proxies in the Philippines. So, that is Indonesia. On November 7th, 2024, Anwar Ibrahim of Malaysia, a major contender over the Spratlys, in a visit to President Xi Jinping, committed to, quote, strengthening collaboration with China beyond trade, unquote, and adding or saying, we view China not just as a leader of the East, but as a voice for the global South one that champions the interests of the developing world. We look forward to your continued support, Mr. President, as your presence is critical to the success of ASEAN. In October 2024, Vietnam, another contender in the scrap list, signed with China 10 deals ranging from agricultural cooperation to cross-border QR code payments that will further boost bilateral trade, already up today by 21% in the first 3 quarters of 2024 at $148 billion. The two countries cooperate to implement signed documents on railway links, modern railway development effectively. Now we go to the Philippines, and let's look at our slide for the background. Left out of all these positive developments between ASEAN countries and China is the Philippines. Although it had an early start with President Duterte's quote, joint oil gas venture, unquote, with China, that US-Filipino proxies, principally Manuel Pangilinan and minions like Teddy Boy Locsin, sabotaged. Since that termination of the deal, more economic projects from China have been cancelled by the Philippines, such as the 4 major railway projects, among others. ASEAN exports to China in 2024, in the first 8 months of 2024, increased by 10.5%, despite weak Philippine exports to China falling by 9.1% year-on-year. The Philippines lost the potential to restore the 2 million Chinese tourist arrivals attained in 2019 and performing now dismally in 2024 to 20 to 25% of 2019 levels. All this deleterious impact from Bongbong Marcos's pivot to the US. Let's show the news about the collapse of Chinese tourism in the Philippines. The next slide. Yes, the collapse of Chinese tourism in the Philippines. As foreign tourist arrivals recovered in Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, Singapore, and Indonesia, the Philippines figure was still around 60%, 10 to 20% lower than the peer countries. I'm missing a page here. Let me take a look at the last. Okay, and the final segment of our position paper here, Philippine loans for U.S. arms. In the midst of exploding poverty, rampant inflation, bloating national debt, the Philippines is compelled by the U.S. warmongering and badgering to expand military arms buildup and purchases by ramping up debt and borrowing. Filipinos are being duped to swallowing this wasteful acquisition of arms, missiles, and warplanes, no amount of which can win any war the Philippines chooses, while its economy is third-rate even by ASEAN standards. So we see the latest news, November 12, 2024, Teodoro announcing that the Philippines may buy, but not borrow Typhoon missiles under Trump. Whether it buys or it borrows, it simply means that the Philippines will borrow because the Philippines is a net borrowing country. In the meantime, you can see the inserts, GMA News Online, Philippine debt balloons to new record high of 15.18 trillion pesos as of end of February 2024. And the SWS survey shows that 58% of Filipino families rate themselves poor in the second quarter survey of 2024. There is nothing to crow about in the signing of the 2 new maritime laws defining the delusional claims of the Philippines under BBM, under Bongbong Marcos. The Philippines will just continue to eat crow until the final calamitous outcome of the strategy of tension and conflict it is engaged in, not only with China, but increasingly with its ASEAN neighbors over the undermining of regional peace and prosperity it is engaging with the U.S. warmonger.